My wife kicked me out, saying, "The house is in my name. You have no rights." She forgot the house was the grand prize in a contest I won, and the prize rules stated it was non-transferable and reverts to the winner if the couple divorces within 5 years. I called the contest organizers the next day. My wife kicked me out, saying the house was hers and I had no claim to it. What she conveniently forgot was that this place wasn't just some piece of property we bought. It was the grand prize from a contest I had won, and the rules were crystal clear. The prize couldn't be transferred, and if the couple split within 5 years, the home would automatically revert back to the winner. The very next day, I called the contest organizers. Carla, my wife, ended our marriage on a Monday night. She didn't do it in a messy, emotional way. No, she was calculated, like someone setting explosives to bring down a building that had stood too long. And that building was the life we'd made together. I was just the collateral damage in her demolition plan. She stood there in our fancy open-concept living room, her arms crossed, and told me flat out, "I'm not happy, Greg. I haven't been happy in a long time." Then came the hammer. I want a divorce. The words hit me hard, but I didn't lose it. I kept calm and said quietly, "Okay." I told her maybe we could sit down and talk, maybe even try counseling. But she didn't let me finish. She cut me off with this short, cruel laugh, like the idea was ridiculous. "No," she said, her tone sharp. "I'm done talking. I already hired a lawyer. Papers are in the works." She said I was only getting the courtesy of a warning. Then she twisted the knife. "I'll be keeping the house, of course," she added, smug as could be, "and everything inside it." She told me to pack a bag, leave by the end of the week, and find somewhere else to live. I just stood there, trying to process what she was saying. "The house?" I asked, stunned. "Carla, we built this life together." Her face hardened. "Don't be naive," she snapped. "You know how this works. The house is in my name. The deed, the title, all of it. Legally, it's mine. You have no rights here. You're just a guest, and your stay is over." She looked so proud of herself, like she'd won the war. And strangely, in that exact moment, I felt calm. Not defeated, calm. It was the kind of calm a man feels when he knows he's holding the winning card, but hasn't laid it down yet. She was right about one thing. The house was technically in her name. That was the entire backbone of her little scheme. But she'd overlooked one very important detail, something buried deep in the stack of paperwork I'd tucked away in my office safe. See, just 4 years ago, I was a nobody. A struggling freelance writer, barely scraping by. But I was obsessed with sustainable design and architecture. Then a major company, Summit Homes, launched a nationwide contest called the Home of the Future. The grand prize? A brand new, fully furnished, eco-friendly home valued at over $1 million. To enter, you had to write a 5,000-word essay on what home meant in the modern world. I poured everything I had into that essay. Weeks of writing, revising, and digging into research. Back then, Carla humored me, acting like it was some harmless side project, like a kid's lemonade stand. 6 months later, against all odds, I won. Out of tens of thousands of entries, my essay was picked. It was the biggest moment of my life. They flew us out for a televised ceremony. There were cameras, speeches, and a giant novelty key. That's how we ended up with this dream house. But the house came with rules and paperwork, mountains of it. Summit's lawyers walked us through everything. At the time, I had some lingering business debts from a failed freelance gig, so Carla's father's lawyer suggested we put the deed solely in her name to protect the house from creditors. He said it was standard practice. And me, being blinded by joy and trusting my wife completely, agreed without a second thought. It seemed like the practical thing to do. That's how Carla became the official owner of the home I had won. But here's the thing, I'm thorough. I read every line of every document I signed, and I never forgot one particular clause in that contract. It was called prize integrity and non-transferability. The rule said the house couldn't be sold or transferred for 5 years, since the whole purpose was to support a family. And buried in there was a reversion clause. If the couple divorced or separated within those 5 years, the house wouldn't be considered marital property. It would go straight back to the original contest winner. And that winner was me. We'd been in that house for 4 years and 8 months. Just 4 months shy of the 5-year mark. So while Carla stood there waiting for me to cry, to beg, to make a fool of myself, I gave her nothing. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "You're right. It's your house. I'll be gone by Friday." My voice sounded flat, even to me. She lit up with triumph. She thought she'd crushed me. The next day, I started packing a couple bags. To her, I looked like a broken man. She watched me with this mix of pity and annoyance, convinced I was throwing away my life. What she didn't know was that I wasn't giving up. I was just setting the board for the game I was about to play. After dropping my bags off at a buddy's place, I went to a quiet coffee shop. I pulled out my phone. I didn't call a divorce lawyer. Not yet. Instead, I rang up the legal department at Summit Homes. I asked for the head of their prize and promotions division. When she got on the line, I said, "Hi, my name's Greg Walker. I won your Home of the Future contest 4 years ago, and I think there's been a breach of the prize contract. I need to discuss invoking the reversion clause." Update 1. That phone call was like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. At first, the woman in the prize division sounded polite but confused. But the second I said reversion clause and divorce, she transferred me straight to their senior corporate counsel, a man named Mr. Harlan. Harlan wasn't polite. He was sharp, direct, and all business, like a scalpel cutting right to the point. I laid out the whole situation for Mr. Harlan. I told him my wife, her name was the only one on the deed, was divorcing me and claiming the house as hers, even though we were still inside the 5-year window spelled out in the contract. After a long pause, he finally spoke. "Mr. Walker," he said, his voice serious, "the integrity of our contests is everything to our company. We pour millions into these promotions. Those clauses you're talking about are there for a reason, specifically to stop this exact kind of scenario, what we consider prize fraud. We can't have our Home of the Future winner's marriage fall apart and then watch the prize get flipped or split in a divorce. It's a PR disaster waiting to happen." He asked me to send him my original winner's contract. I pulled it up on my laptop right then and emailed him a scanned copy. A few minutes later, he confirmed he had it in hand and told me his team would start combing through it immediately. "Do not talk to your wife or her attorney," he warned me. "Let us make the first move. You're the official contest winner. We'll protect our brand, and by extension, we'll protect you." For the first time since Carla dropped the bomb on me, I felt a weight come off my shoulders. I wasn't standing alone anymore. I had a Fortune 500 company and their entire legal arsenal backing me. Sure enough, just a few days later, Friday, to be exact, I was served with divorce papers at my friend's house. Carla wasted no time. The papers were every bit as arrogant and cutthroat as I expected. They listed the house as her sole and separate property and demanded I sign a quitclaim deed to wipe out any possibility of me making a claim. On top of that, she wanted spousal support, citing the standard of living she had grown used to while living in our prize home. I didn't bother reading every page. I skimmed it, laughed, and emailed a PDF straight over to Mr. Harlan at Summit Homes. The response was quick. The very next day, a courier dropped a thick, official-looking envelope on the front porch of my old house, addressed to Carla Miller. I wouldn't have even known about it if not for my neighbor, Dave, who texted me a photo of it with a little message. "Looks like someone's not too happy with your wife." Later that night, my phone lit up. It was Carla. This time, she wasn't yelling. She was crying. Real, panicked crying. "What did you do, Greg?" she sobbed into the phone. "I just got a letter from Summit Homes. From their lawyers. They're saying the house isn't mine. They're talking about some reversion clause." "What is that?" I kept my tone calm, steady. "It's in the prize contract, Carla. The one we both signed. It clearly says if we divorce within 5 years, the house goes back to me, the contest winner. It's not marital property. It's a prize, and you just broke the condition that kept it with us." "That can't be right," she cried. "My lawyer told me the deed was all that mattered. He said the house was mine." "Then your lawyer didn't do his homework," I shot back. "He never looked at the prize contract, the very thing that established the title in the first place. Summit's legal team clearly disagrees with him. And honestly, Carla, I think their lawyers probably know a little more about contract law than the guy you hired." Her crying turned to hysteria. "This is your fault. You're trying to ruin me. You're trying to make me homeless." "No, Carla," I said coldly. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just following the rules of a contest I won. You're the one who pulled the trigger on our marriage for months before the prize became unconditional. You couldn't even wait. Your greed and impatience are what's putting you in this mess, not me." Then I told her one last thing before hanging up. "You should have read the fine print." And just like that, her whole scheme fell apart. Her entire future rested on the belief that she truly owned that house. Now she was finding out she'd basically been a tenant with an expiring lease. The ground she'd built her new life on was nothing but dust. Update 2. The last month has been one long, painful education for Carla. She's found out the hard way that there's a world of difference between a small-town divorce lawyer and the legal department of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's not a fair fight. It's like showing up to a battle with a kitchen knife while the other side has stealth bombers and drones circling overhead. Her lawyer, this guy who clearly thought my divorce was going to be an easy slam dunk, was completely out of his league. He fired back with a puffed-up letter to Summit Homes, claiming the reversion clause was unconscionable and unenforceable against a legal deed holder. Summit's reply, from what I was told, was a masterpiece. They didn't just send a letter. They buried him under a 50-page legal brief, stacked with case law, examples from other contests, and pages of precedent about conditional prizes and contract enforcement. They spelled it out in black and white. The prize wasn't a gift. It was a contractually awarded asset tied to very specific terms. My signature on the original contract was the true legal cornerstone. The deed in Carla's name was secondary, conditional, and completely dependent on that original contract. And they ended it with a brutal warning. If Carla didn't back off her claim immediately, Summit Homes would not only step into the divorce proceedings on my behalf, but they'd also consider suing her separately for attempting to fraudulently convert a corporate asset. Carla's lawyer caved instantly. He called my attorney. Yes, I finally had to hire one just to deal with the divorce paperwork, and admitted they were dropping every single claim to the house. With her legal angle destroyed, Carla shifted tactics. She started an emotional smear campaign. She ran around telling our friends and family that I was a vindictive husband using a loophole to steal her home and leave her with nothing. But that narrative didn't stick. Everyone knew I won the house. They'd seen me sweating over that essay. They'd celebrated when I won. They knew this place came from my effort and passion, not hers. Her trying to paint herself as the victim only made her look selfish and entitled. And when that didn't work, she pulled her last desperate card, the affair. I'd suspected for months, but I never had proof. Turns out, I didn't need to go looking for it. The truth came straight to me. Last week, I had to go back to the house with a neutral third-party escort so I could pick up the rest of my personal belongings. Carla was there, her face tight with resentment, saying nothing. While I was packing up what was left in my office, I stumbled across a shoebox shoved in the back of the closet. Inside were old greeting cards, faded photos, and at the very bottom, a small stack of printed emails. The sender's name was Victor. The contents left no room for doubt. They weren't friendly exchanges. They were graphic, explicit, and painted a clear picture of what had been going on. She'd been having an affair for over a year. The emails spelled out their plans, their trips together, even their shared disgust toward me. But one in particular, written just 2 weeks before Carla asked me for a divorce, was the most damning of all. Victor had written, "Once you get the house free and clear from that dead weight, we can finally start our real life together. I can't wait to be in our home." Our home. That was the moment I realized the truth. This whole divorce wasn't just Carla deciding she didn't want me anymore. She'd been planning to swap me out, using my prize, the house, as the foundation for her new life with Victor. I didn't confront her. I didn't shout. I didn't even let on that I knew. I simply slid those emails into my briefcase and kept on packing. The fight over the house was already settled. But those emails were about to become very important in the divorce settlement, especially when it came to spousal support and splitting what little else we had left. Carla thought she was just losing the house. She had no clue that I now had the evidence to make sure she lost everything else, too. Final update. 6 months have passed since my old life went up in flames. The dust has finally settled, and here I stand, holding the deed to my future. The divorce wrapped up last week, and the outcome was every bit as final and absolute as I could have hoped. Those emails I found, they were the last nail in her coffin. Once my lawyer presented them during negotiations, her demands for spousal support and an equal split of our other assets collapsed instantly. The judge took one look at the evidence, adultery, conspiracy, and outright fraud, and he wasn't about to side with her. The decree was pure poetic justice. Carla got no spousal support. She was ordered to repay the money she'd spent out of our joint account on her affair, and she was left responsible for her own ballooning legal bills. After 8 years of marriage, she walked away with nothing but her clothes, her car, and a pile of debt she'll be dragging around for years. Meanwhile, the house, by virtue of the Summit Homes contract, legally snapped back into my name the moment the ink dried on that decree. The day she had to move out was a quiet one. I wasn't even there. I had my lawyer and a representative from Summit Homes supervise the process. They made sure she only took what belonged to her and didn't damage the place on her way out. From what I was told, she looked like a ghost. All that fire and arrogance was gone. She packed in silence and walked out without a word. Victor? He was nowhere to be seen. The second that $1 million, mortgage-free dream house disappeared, so did he. Turns out, he wasn't interested in Carla, just the prize. Her master plan to trade up in life ended with her losing her husband, her house, her savings, and her boyfriend. Last I heard, she's renting a small apartment across town, starting over from the ashes of her own greed. As for me, I'm home. The past month, I've been reclaiming this place. I repainted the walls, bought new furniture, and erased every trace of her from these rooms. The house doesn't feel like a contest prize anymore. It feels earned. Earned through grit, patience, and surviving a war I never asked for. Then, just when I thought the story was over, some at home surprised me. A week after the divorce was finalized, I got a package from Mr. Harlan. Inside was a letter that read, "Mr. Walker, we were impressed by your integrity and strength throughout this ordeal. You proved to be exactly the kind of person we hoped would win our grand prize. Please accept this small token of appreciation." With the letter was a check for $50,000, earmarked for legal fees and home security upgrades. I stood in the middle of my living room, holding that check in my hand, and laughed. Carla had tried to strip me of everything. She told me I had no rights. But she forgot one important truth. I was the one who wrote the essay that won this house. And in the end, I was the one who got to write the ending. And it's a damn good one.